You're listening to Automated Beat Machine.
Hello and welcome. This is Automated Beat Machine with Atwood Magazine, and I'm your host, Danny Vagnoni. This is a show about oddities, triumphs, failures, and everything in between in the music world. Today we're discussing the controversy surrounding the NFT marketplace called Hitpiece. We're joined by Nat Puff of Left at London to talk to us about her experience with the project.
Look at this baby.
She is so adorable.
For those of you that can't see, Nat's cat has just walked into frame.
He's a good boy.
Oh, he's a good boy. My apologies.
Yeah, you bitch.
With the occasional interlude from her cat.
So, for our listeners, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, my name is Left at London, Nat Puff. I am a singer-songwriter out of Seattle. I made an album once, and I'm gonna make more.
A very good album.
Thank you.
So, you're also a former Vine star, RIP.
Yes.
And
I don't talk about that as much anymore.
yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, you've gone full into this.
So initially I had written an episode on NFTs broadly and wanted to sit down with an artist to riff on how stupid they are and why their adopters are either dupers or dupees. Then Hitpiece happened. In early February 2022, a website called Hitpiece surged into the view of musical artists everywhere. The most prominent reaction was among some popular indie musicians. But what is Hitpiece? How did it go from nothing to on the receiving end of a lawsuit from the Recording Industry Association of America, the RIAA, in just a few days? Why are musicians so mad about it? And what does it suggest about the future of the music industry? To understand Hitpiece, we first, regrettably, have to talk about cryptocurrency. With apologies to all the long-suffering girlfriends out there who have already been put through this ringer. But there's the immutable fact that this is just entertainment poison. There's the fact that, by nature, the conversation must always begin with a discussion of the blockchain and crypto itself before even addressing the important facts of what NFTs even do. For instance, they're terrible for the environment, but how do you go from speculative currency to consuming as much power as Argentina? I promise, the answer isn't fun. Then there's the fact that seemingly every artist, from Portugal the Man to Grimes to Deadmau5, to everyone in between, seems to be picking up on the scheme, blushing their music with just that much more doubt about their ethics as an artist. One of these artists in particular seemed to come as a great surprise to Left at London.
Wait, Kings of Leon did an NFT?
I think they tried to create their own cryptocurrency or something.
The Kings of Leon crypto? What?
Let me Google that before I
Oh my god.
go and slander them.
No, these are the same guys that were like, no, we don't want our music on Glee because we don't want to be fucking sellouts or something. Now they're making NFTs.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
I know, right?
Oh.
So yeah, this is from March 3rd of last year. Kings of Leon will be the first band to release an album as an NFT. And obviously Grimes had a very high profile one, but she's been into like AI tech nonsense for ages.
Oh yeah. I have a proposition for the communists.
I have a proposition for the communists.
Yeah, I think about that quote so often.
Yeah, same.
And it took me a while to actually like look at the full video where she says that.
It's unbearable.
It's so weird. Oh God, it's just absolute nonsense.
Because let's be real, enforced farming is really not a vibe.
Still, because they've become an insurgent asset, NFTs are important to talk about, and with headlines in publications like Bloomberg reading, NFTs shift power to artists as the music business evolves, there must be something up. If you're already familiar with the basics of this conversation, feel free to skip ahead for our coverage of Hitpiece itself, which you might find more engaging. I also want to note that much of the technical info on this stuff comes from Everest Pipkin, who does a way more thorough job of explaining this than I. So if that interests you, check it out at the link in the description. With that out of the way, let's begin. Part 1. The blockchain. We'll keep this quick. Blockchain is a type of database, and as far as cryptocurrency is concerned, it's best envisioned as a public ledger, a place where anyone, in theory, can go and view an entire history of transactions. The supposed beauty of blockchain, and quite frankly I sympathize with this on some level, is that it's decentralized. Okay, that's blockchain. Now on to Part 2. Cryptocurrency. Crypto is where the rubber hits the road in our story of NFTs. Without crypto, the blockchain is just a database. With crypto, it's a ledger interesting to an intersection of finance people and tech people, and a strange Venn diagram of artists themselves. Cryptocurrency is basically money that only exists digitally. Easy enough to understand, basically like liquid capital, only instead of storing it in a bank account, it's stored in online wallets or in speculative assets. Still, you may have heard of people losing a fabulous amount of money because they lost the key to their Bitcoin wallets. This makes a great point of segue. Because crypto is not fiat currency, it isn't backed by any existing government and therefore doesn't have the insurance that normal currency has. Part 3. NFTs. Well, it's a non-fungible token. Isn't that explanation enough? Part 4. Why non-fungible tokens are destroyed. No, just kidding. So a non-fungible token is a token that can't be funged. This means that it's a token that is completely unique. It is the only one, and it always will be the only one. Unlike a Bitcoin, which can be exchanged freely for another Bitcoin with no real difference, NFTs carry the data of their associated crypto art, creator, owner, associated art, and so on. Really, anything can be made into an NFT. Some enterprising young capitalists have even taken art by others, tokenized it, and sold it on the marketplace as an NFT without the artist's permission, because these things have literally never seen the light of a court, something their advocates will claim is actually a benefit. Remember that for later. NFTs are typically, and this verbiage is directly from The Verge, part of the Ethereum blockchain. This means that creating an NFT is party to a lot of other things happening on the blockchain, and culpable for those energy expenses. But why bother? Well, as an artist, the value proposition seems pretty clear. A big paycheck, and even the possibility of a percentage payout when the NFT trades hands. But except for isolated instances, this has remained almost exclusively the playground of already very wealthy artists, with the odds of success pretty slim.
But yeah, I mean, like, say what you will about both Kings of Leon and Grimes, but I feel like there was this sort of patina of legitimacy to NFTs, at least that they were trying to give it. But this thing that happened with Hitpiece has been so manifestly crooked from the start that I feel like it's a really revealing moment for crypto.
I feel like the general vibe of what has been happening with Hitpiece has been a very eye-opening thing for people who are sort of on the fence, especially musicians, especially people who are avid music fans. I feel like it really set off a lot of red flags for people, and I'm thankful for that because, oh my God.
Yeah,
I fucking hated NFTs from the start.
yeah.
It's actually kind of funny because that I had a friend reach out to me like when NFTs were like just starting out, asking me if I wanted to be in on the ground floor, and I was like, and I like didn't really understand the concept.
Yeah.
So I was like considering it for a while, and I like asked like my roommate, asked my girlfriend at the time, and they were both like, that sounds stupid. And then I was like, all right, let me think about it. Yeah, that's stupid. And then I just fucking rejected the offer. And to this day, I am so thankful that I rejected that offer. I would have made a lot of money because it was like the ground floor of like something that is meant to be a large system of currency that can be taken advantage of very easily at a time where it couldn't be taken advantage of too easily. The fact that I'm out of that mess, thank God.
So maybe an addendum. For established artists, the value proposition seems pretty clear. To the NFT collector with bigger plans, it's better that we understand NFTs as a speculative asset like stock, or even like Bitcoin or Ethereum themselves. Since there's no tangible benefit to the literal NFT, it's best for them to hold on to it as it appreciates value, Because, by and large, buying an NFT is prohibitively expensive, it's a rich person's game at this point, so it's sort of in their benefit to be all in on the concept. It's speculation at this point, but there's a very strong argument to be made that the hype, not the art, the blockchain, or even the NFT itself, makes NFTs valuable, so that they can be sold off at a later point. Why push so hard on this new technology? Why corner the media into making an endless spate of articles about something that is, technologically, wholly unremarkable, unless there was something in it to be gained for the people that invested a whole lot of capital into it? And this is how the digital item du jour becomes a pyramid scheme. Like lots of things that go on in finance where no value is ever created, only accrued over time through subtle market manipulation. Smart money is on the Bloomberg investors. Remember their article from earlier, NFTs shift power to artists as the music business evolves. Having stock in promoting the applications of NFTs. Because if you push hard enough, that new information will explode in value and bloat the early investors' portfolios of like Cyber Babies and Nyan Cat. Why gas up a platform so in its infancy from the start? Keep it in mind for now. In the meantime, let's discuss something that is absolutely proven about NFTs, and that is, why are these things so bad for the environment? In order to create an NFT, and similarly for Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, the power consumption is, quote, somewhere between weeks, months, years, and in rare instances, decades of an average EU or US citizen's energy consumption. This is from the excellent Everest Pipkin, who I mentioned earlier. I think this speaks for itself, but it's worth keeping in mind that the average EU or US citizen is on the high end of power consumption on an individual basis. To that end, crypto miners have caused GPU shortages and, as Pipkin notes, done everything from retrofitting shipping containers with air conditioning and vast swaths of GPUs to moving to places with cheaper electricity to cut the costs of their mining. From a justice lens, again via Pipkin, a recent study out of the University of New Mexico estimated that in 2018, every dollar of Bitcoin was responsible for 49 cents in health and climate damages in the US, costs that are borne by those who will, for the most part, never see any return from cryptocurrency mining whatsoever. In March of 2019, a longtime Sony associate named Rory Felton publishes a blog on LinkedIn titled, How to Win the Music Industry of 2019 through 2025.
On LinkedIn, because of course, there are some truly dystopian ambitions in it. You get the sense that this Rory Felton guy does not care about music at all as an art.
In it, he describes a vision of the music industry where AI determines and understands, quote, stars and hits before the wider industry does. Proprietary algorithms will be created and machine learning/AI will make them smarter over time to analyze audio quality, artist performance quality, social and streaming metrics that filter through hundreds of thousands to highlight a small quantity for proven A&R humans to review. At the same time, high-potential artists and tracks that are identified outside of the system can be run through the algorithm and assigned a score enabling a gut check of a gut check.
That's dastardly. That is dastardly.
Yeah.
I will say that, like, algorithmic music, boring. AI made music, nice. I love AI made music.
Yeah, kind of interesting.
It is legit interesting because that, you get shit like death salsa, which is one of the coolest fucking subgenres that I've ever heard, and it technically does not exist.
But yeah, the idea that an algorithm can write a chord progression and do some rhythms, that's something I can digest. The idea of an AI using algorithms to determine what will be popular on the market is, like you said, it's just dastardly.
This will be utilized to make decisions on partnering with artists directly with 50-50 deals where additional A&R, promotion, marketing, and brand partnership services are provided similar to a traditional label. It continues. Blockchain digital collectibles can create large new revenue streams, a modern take on a fan club with gated content and access, and enable audiences to participate in the economics of a music ecosystem in a way that hasn't been possible before.
It has been possible.
Yes.
It's called Patreon.
This, in my eyes, is just digital enclosure, gating off access to music even further behind this absurd new technology that is I mean, in this case, explicitly not in control of the artists.
Felton's subheading on LinkedIn is, incidentally and simply, Metaverse and Music. Bone-chillingly inhuman. According to Slate, which is where I'll be pulling most of the facts of this story from, he eventually partnered with early Spotify investor Jeff Birmingham in 2020 to found Hitpiece and raised $5 million in a seed funding round.
Rory Felton is this guy who founded Hitpiece.
Yeah.
And he is a legit music industry guy. He initially raised $5 million for this project. So what's your take on that?
I am pleading the fifth.
Okay.
I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, but I don't like it. It feels ominous and scary. The fact that NFTs and crypto are just so riddled with like the ability to scam people, it sets a really bad precedent, especially seeing how this is being handled and how this was handled prior, how this is being handled currently, how this is going to be handled in the future. All of it sucks. There's no plus side to this for anybody but Rory Felton and MC Search.
In December of 2021, Hitpiece had a beta launch party for its marketplace, but it wasn't until early February until a spate of musicians began to discover that their music had been listed on their marketplace as NFTs without their consent.
Let's get into a little bit about what specifically happened to you. Early February, we've been talking about it. This platform called Hitpiece emerged and began selling NFTs of artists without their consent. So can you tell me how you found out about this and like anything that directly followed?
Two of my fans just reached out to me and just were like, yo, did you know that your music's being sold as an NFT? Slowly throughout that day, realizing like, oh, it wasn't just my music, it was a bunch of my friends, but like a bunch of these friends of mine are like small artists. And I was like, how the fuck were these people targeted?
The value prop was somewhat unclear, but reportedly purchasing one of the NFTs, say for a BTS song or album, rewarded the buyer with, to quote Hitpiece's LinkedIn page, the original release artwork or bespoke generative cover art, and can consist of access to experiences, exclusives, and additional utility found nowhere else. I can only guess at what bespoke generative cover art means. So in honor of that guess, I've included a link to a neural net blended version of BTS's Map of the Soul 7 in the description to give you an idea. At time of writing, Hitpiece has shown no signs of experiences, exclusives, and additional utility, but Foley's manifesto includes a line where he says, "Brand partnerships will be a core component to breaking new artists, utilizing their capital and reach for the artist's benefit and promotion where major labels would previously have played that role." It seems a safe assumption that brand partnerships would play a role in these gated experiences. How did they get access to this database of musicians, though? Hitpiece's marketplace featured practically every musical artist you could imagine, from megastars like BTS to unknown acts that hadn't made music in years. Even bands of friends of mine made it on there. Spotify, who's already having a moment of their own, has a publicly available API. Andy Bio, who helped build Kickstarter, pointed out that Hitpiece's artist IDs were all identical to Spotify's. The site seems to have scraped Spotify's architecture, and in Bio's words, put a thin wrapper on it.
Oh yeah, they just copied Spotify's API. That's all they did. And the fact that that even happened is just so fucking weird, because it's like, oh god, how do you get away with that? How do you get away with that and like get off with only like a minor social boo-boo? I'm definitely not the first person to point this out, but my god, the balls you have to be a white man with a high top fade stealing a bunch of fucking like black artists' music as NFTs on Black History Month requires a lot of fucking balls. But it's just the high top fade that really gets me.
Each NFT was listed at a starting price of $100 and was open for bids. The rap group Clipping posted that Hitpiece had an NFT of their song Summertime listed for over $21 million.
I think the concept of the website was that like, oh, we sell the NFTs, and then if any of these NFTs sell, then we'll give the crypto to the artist directly, and then some of it will go to us. Like,
Yeah.
that shouldn't be legal as far as I know. And also another weird thing is that you could pay directly with a credit card if you auctioned off. But the thing is that like you didn't even have to like attach it to a credit card or a crypto account or whatever in order to auction. on a piece, the bid was always starting at $100, and the highest bid was like 1,200,000 something.
But later, a user named, quote, NFTs are scams, unquote, went through and artificially inflated a number of auctions to the same price, seemingly without verification or commitment.
There was a user that went through, I believe their username was NFTs are scams, and they just artificially bumped the bids up on some of these auctions to like 21 million or whatever.
Which is genius. Genius.
Mm-hmm.
That's real comrade shit, honestly. Shouts out to NFTs are scams.
Absolutely. And without having any validation on any kind of account.
With the news cascading across Twitter to universally negative response, Hitpiece tried some damage control, but the effort was so incoherent it arguably made their predicament worse. The Hitpiece account began responding to artists, asking to move the conversation to DMs, but promptly ghosted. Some associates of Hitpiece were a bit more responsive.
So the two people that co-founded it, Rory Felton and MC Search, I contacted MC Search.
Yeah.
And he sent me a slew of weirdly phrased messages. At one point, I was like, yo, you have stolen a bunch of my friends' music. And they were like, oh yeah, which artist? And I'm like, they're telling you, they're DMing you, telling you to take this shit down. Like, I don't need to tell you these guys' names. And then he messaged me back essentially like, then don't try to pretend that you represent people that you don't actually represent. And I was like, whoa, hold up. What the fuck are you talking about? This guy, MC Search, tried to essentially
turn it around.
Try to turn it around, try to be like, you're trying to like legally represent a bunch of people that you don't actually legally represent. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to legally represent anybody. I'm trying to stick up for my friends, jackhole. Do you remember Friends? The thing that you had once and then probably lost all of? It's a thing that you do for friends. You stick up for them when people are trying to steal their shit. I genuinely got the vibe that this guy was like angry and very weirded out by the fact that more people weren't like excited by this prospect. It's a very strange thing to have to talk somebody out of stealing your own art.
Ultimately, it seems like the minds behind the project decided the public lip service was enough to stave off total indictment. Visiting the Hitpiece website now yields one singular page, a black page reading, "We started the conversation and we're listening." New Age HR buzzspeak pablum trying to imitate the tones of accountability culture. Words without action in the hopes that the problem will simply resolve itself.
One day, fucking Pillsbury is going to say the word accountability and I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. I will fucking lose it.
Or there's the more malicious interpretation. Robert of the Human Fly dug up industry rumors that Felton had intended Hitpiece as a media bomb, attracting the attention of the press, and thus investors, to drum up excitement for the project, in spite of the obvious legal ramifications of recommodifying musicians' work en masse. Hitpiece did claim that artists were meant to receive a royalty from NFTs sold of their work, but it was never clear how they were meant to receive this payout, especially as Hitpiece didn't notify the artists, or perhaps even more fundamentally, ask for consent. Back to Felton's manifesto, he says, "Artists won't have to give up 90% of their recordings revenue. This is the base level pitch most NFT aficionados give to artists in all fields of creation. Take out the middleman and pay artists." It's an effective pitch because it's been the fundamental problem of the music industry since music became an industry, and without context or examination, seems to be true. You can point to artists like Grimes who made $390,000 on a single NFT. And while a great number of musicians are jumping in on the trend, Left It London and others like her aren't buying it, and for various reasons are pulling in the other direction.
It's really appealing. I mean, the pitch is to cut out the middleman and get paid a proper wage for your work.
Yeah, that pitch by itself is just describing like Bandcamp and Patreon.
Right.
And that's the thing that bothers me so much about NFT language is that they're like, cut out the middleman, cut out the middleman. There are several middlemen. There are several middlemen to fucking any transaction, unless if you are personally going up to the artist, giving them money and being like, hey, thank you for making music. There's always going to be a middleman. The only difference between NFTs and Patreon is just how much the middleman can get away with. That's what's the bothersome thing about the whole thing, is that like people want to pretend that like there is no like corruption in crypto because it's so new, but that's
Yeah.
not the way that works. That's not the way it works.
The exact opposite a lot of the
It's
times.
the exact opposite. In any case where anything is brand new and can be taken advantage of, come on.
It will be, yeah.
Come on.
Then there's the whole like burning down several hectares of rainforest every time you make an NFT.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, like, I think, honestly, this is going to sound so fucked up, but I'm pretty sure that that's like part of the appeal. I feel like for the people who like NFTs, there's just sort of like the ability to destroy a rainforest is a powerful fucking thing.
Yeah.
And if you can do that from the comfort of your own office chair, like, why wouldn't you do it if you are like a bloodthirsty capitalist greedmeister, worst fucking person?
Yeah, just the raw exercise of power.
Other musicians like Brian Eno have their own choice words about NFTs and their opposition to them. In an interview with Evgeny Morozov, an American intellectual, Eno said, "NFTs seem to me just a way for artists to get a little piece of action from global capitalism, our own cute little version of financialization. How sweet. Now artists can become little capitalist assholes too." Zola Jesus has also come out very publicly against NFTs, saying, "I think the financialization around the NFT space needs some heavy auditing before it's actually a fair market for the artists themselves, and that the art is being purchased for the merit of what it expresses, rather than what profit it could yield in the future. I don't want people to bet on me like a racehorse." Anani minces her words slightly less. She says, "I think it's shit. They won't stop until they have sucked the life and value out of every remaining shred of organic life and every last gasp of analog craft or thought, and crammed it into Elon Musk and Grimes's patented space dildo, headed for Mars to reauthor the future of sentience in their own psychotic and ethically bankrupt likeness." A project like Hitpiece, while paying lip service to artists' rights, completely undermines that value proposition. So I asked Left at London what I think the pertinent question of this scandal really is, and what so many scandals in the music industry seem to boil down to, including the one going on with Spotify right now. What does a future look like where we pay artists properly? Is it a platform? Is it a total upending of the industry?
Are Patreon and Bandcamp good enough? Or should we have some kind of even more disintermediated platform?
Well, for one thing, I feel like adding platform after platform is going to be fucking confusing. I think what we need to do right now is Spotify specifically, but like every fucking streaming service, pretty much except Tidal and Napster, is severely, and like you can even argue that Tidal and Napster are doing the same, but they're paying the most. So it's like, gift horse, mouth, et cetera, et cetera. With a spotlight on Spotify and with it being one of the most popular streaming sites of our lifetime in terms of like music streaming, I think that it would be useful if we put the pressure on Spotify a little bit more to pay their artists better. I've always been in favor of sort of like a tax bracket sort of thing where instead of tax brackets would be equivalent to like streaming amounts, and then each bracket would be a different amount that you get per stream. You get higher money per stream the lower your streams are. Like, it makes consistent sense and you get a consistent amount of money no matter what streaming numbers that you have. But if you have 1 billion streaming numbers per month, you're not going to make as much per stream as much as an artist who is like 100,000, because like you'd be getting more money regardless.
Yeah.
So it would only make sense to have like sort of a bracketed system. That's what I've always been in favor of. And I don't understand why nobody's done it before. Bitches aren't smart.
Here, I offhandedly mentioned Joe Rogan, and Left at London has some words on that as well.
The fact that Spotify ties into this and how they're having a whole moment right now about paying artists and the Joe Rogan stuff.
Oh yeah, my fucking dad sent me an article about like Spotify like promising to, because they re-signed Joe Rogan's contract for $100 million, and they were like, we're gonna pledge $100 million separately to lift the voices of marginalized creators and stuff like that, and I'm just like, save your fucking breath. This is like this is an entirely symbolic gesture. You're blowing smoke up people's asses for a limited amount of time because you don't want the pressure on you. It's like the same thing where it's like carbon offsetting, where it's like, for every NFT you mint, we plant a tree. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like it's not balancing it out. It's just making more tension on both sides. It's absolutely frustrating to see Spotify being like completely out of context from the Joe Rogan shit. Planning to like spend $100 million to help marginalized creators. Great. We love it. In the context of underpaying these artists otherwise and paying Joe Rogan, one guy, the same amount that you're paying multiple marginalized creators, it's insulting.
Yeah.
It is absolutely insulting that they would do that. I told my dad that, and he compared me to the guy who turned down $5,000 from Elon Musk to stop tracking his private jet on Twitter, which I was like, oh, thanks, Dad.
That's really funny. I actually hadn't heard about that.
So there's a Twitter account that like tracks Elon Musk's private jet because it's public information. And Elon Musk offered $5,000, which, considering Elon Musk's net worth, is a smack in the face.
Yeah.
But what of industrializing music? What of the industry itself? When I posed this question to Left at London, she happily described what a future Spotify might look like. But the real answer is something more fundamental.
I think it's more so that the idea of industries, just in general, like are harmful concepts, trying to commodify anything of the sort. I feel like, I don't want to have discussions about, am I being paid fairly? Because I don't want to be paid necessarily. I just want to live. I want to live comfortably on Earth and make my music however I can.
Yeah.
Everything else is secondary.
Yeah, there is something about constructing an industry around something as human as music or art. You're basically industrializing, a fundamental aspect of human experience.
Yeah. And it's like, if we don't have free healthcare, then it's like, how the fuck are we gonna pay artists like fairly? We don't have the morals for that.
The recommodification of artists' work on Hitpiece was so egregious that even the RIAA took notice and started coming down hard on the project.
Is there anything legally that you can talk about? I know you said on Twitter anyway that you're trying to get your lawyers involved, but this is kind of this weird space because NFTs and crypto in general are not regulated because there's no real legal precedent.
The RIAA is suing them now. No offense to my lawyer, but I feel like the RIAA is going to have the most expensive lawyers.
Yeah.
They are going to crush them. And I am going to watch it happen with a smile.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't believe that I am on the side of the RIAA suing anybody. But, you know, stranger things have happened. 2022, baby. Topsy-turvy.
Yeah, I like that. 2022, topsy-turvy.
It seems like a completely insane proposition. Here is Rory Felton, a music industry veteran, a Billboard 30 Under 30 exec, a Sony associate with ties to a Spotify investor who tried to scrape every artist on Spotify and sell their assets without consent. Hitpiece counts among its associates heavyweights like Busta Rhymes and Noriega. How could people with that experience not see what would await a project so manifestly corrupt? Unless, of course, they're sitting at the top of a pyramid that needs its base expanded. But what of the idea that Hitpiece was not intended to be successful, but was intended to be a media bomb? It seems plausible, but it is worth it to note that these are simply unconfirmed allegations at this point. From an industry point of view, however, the attitude that NFT advocates take with artists and art, think the Bored Ape Project, seems deeply uninterested in the human aspect of art. Their relationship with art is instrumental, and to hell with the naysayers. With $5 million already behind the project, it isn't difficult to imagine a scenario where, despite the outcry of a majority of artists, larger acts with resources partnering with brands and record labels could result in a top-down coup, foisting such a model on unwilling artists, just as the current industry model has been foisted on them already. We already have examples of the NFT-curious artist. I've already mentioned Grimes and Deadmau5, but the list is telescopic, growing longer each time a new wave of NFTs emerges. A non-exhaustive list consists of artists like Eminem, Lady Gaga, Post Malone, Doja Cat, Lil Nas, Katy Perry, Deadmau5, Snoop Dogg, Halsey, Marshmello, John Legend, Diplo, A$AP Rocky, Grimes, 2 Chainz, Weezer, Mick Jagger, Slipknot, Gorillaz, Ozzy Osbourne, The White Stripes, Kings of Leon, Wu-Tang Clan, Korn, Maroon 5, Interpol, and David Lynch? David, why? NFT advocates position themselves as artist-aligned, but their deep incuriosity about music as an art and a shared experience leaves them gating and financializing music. Hitpiece is a watershed moment because it shows nakedly what NFTs are now: pure speculative assets and robotic financial power. Time will tell if the bare corruption of Hitpiece will make a lasting impact on NFT inroads into music. With all of this in mind, it seems difficult to know where to go from here, unless of course you're pro NFT, in which case it's perfectly clear. But for artists who don't want to participate in this scheme, whether for the sake of the environment, for the artless financialization of music, as Zola Jesus said, not being treated like a racehorse, the corrupt executions of the concept so far, the path forward is more difficult. I've been pretty cynical about the potential of the tech up to this point. I'd like to take at least one moment to acknowledge the potential of NFTs, at least conditionally. There is naturally the hope that NFTs could eventually, removed from their rainforest annihilating roots, actually be used for good as a way for artists to achieve parity and circumvent the predatory practices of the industry. The attitude their advocates take, however, seems entirely concerned with the financialization and profit potential of NFTs. Again, to the Brian Eno interview, Morozov remarks that crypto advocates see themselves the same way as Web 2.0 platforms see themselves, as disruptors. Despite the Randian laissez-faire attitude around NFTs and crypto more broadly that says it will take the shape of its container, that it will serve who it can serve without interference, there are people attempting to shape where this social project goes. Unimpeded, the space will continue at pace and be ceded to financiers and people like Rory Felton, those already flush with resources. We see this in the bevy of NFT projects that have popped up under the direction of mega artists and large labels. There is no coherent active movement against NFTs, nor crypto. There was a flash in the pan where K-pop fans, my absolute favorite loosely organized sect of chaotic good mischief makers online, threatened to boycott HYBE, the South Korean entertainment company behind BTS, when they announced an NFT campaign. The company seems to be charging ahead with it anyway, though. The same can be said of most large NFT campaigns. There are some moments where it has been possible to educate or pressure smaller artists, and here I'm using smaller in a relative sense, like smaller than mega forces like John Legend and Katy Perry pushing the space into music. Of Montreal abandoned an NFT campaign at the urging of fans. Quote, "My brother and I collaborated on our first NFT, check it out!" The same day. "Ooh, fuck, we didn't realize NFTs were so bad for the environment, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. This will be a one and done then, thanks for the heads up." Cara Cara Bonito did the same. Still, without resolving the environmental problems inherent in crypto, it isn't an understatement to say continuing to pursue the technology is a deranged proposition. Brian Eno, again, quote, "In a warming world, a new technology that uses vast amounts of energy as proof of work, that's to say, simply to establish a certain badge of exclusivity, really is quite insane. All that energy is making nothing that we need. I know there's proof of stake, something I didn't talk about in this episode, but I don't know if that can actually work unless everybody changes over to it. And even if it did, it doesn't address the other issues that bother me. Like Eno says, even if these issues are resolved, what's the point? They don't even do anything, it's just a token. If Hitpiece isn't yet the watershed moment for musicians across the spectrum, maybe it should become one. Nonetheless, to not leave this first episode on too grim a note, I'd like to, in whiplash fashion, transition back to my talk with Left at London. In another part of our conversation, we talked about her album, which is phenomenal, so listen ahead for that conversation and a sample of her incredible song, Pills and Good Advice. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, you've gone full into the musician thing and it seems to be working out well. Do you actually want to, I know that this isn't the full purpose of the interview here, but did you want to tell us about the musical projects? Your debut album is T.I.A.P.F.Y.H.
Yes. T.I.A.P.F.Y.H, otherwise referred to as T.I.A.P.F.Y.H, which is how I pronounce it. I made that album because I was originally going to make a different debut album, and then I was offered a position at a artist in residency program with the city of Shoreline, which is a city just immediately north of Seattle.
Oh, wonderful.
And they were like, yeah, you can stay in this beach house that overlooks the water, and you just got to make art. And as long as you finish the art at the end of the day, then we're good. I'm like, that sounds great. I got paid money to do it. And I was very happy with the results. And the album is just essentially just a manifesto on mental health. And I'm very, very proud of it.
Yeah, there's a lot to be proud of. I mean, for people who haven't listened to it, the first track is this 10-minute magnum opus called Pills and Good Advice.
Yes.
Just like a really touching song. And yeah, I've noticed that you've been an advocate for mental health and stuff online, and your work obviously as well.
It's really funny because every time that somebody describes Pills and Good Advice back to me, like 9 times out of 10, they use the word magnum opus, and I'm just
God.
oh. It's really fun to have something that people can affectionately refer to as a magnum opus. It's quite wonderful.
But yeah, I feel like we don't get a whole lot of really good 10-minute tracks anymore. And when you're faced with something like that, you have to use words as grandiose as magnum opus.
Oh, grandiose. I wonder what the last good 10-minute song that I can think of is.
All of mine are picks from 70s prog rock, and I don't even know that I'd call those magnum opus.
Ooh, yeah, I love 70s prog.
Oh yeah.
You fuck with Yes?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes, I fuck with Yes.
Okay, yeah. Close to the Edge is literally my favorite album of all time.
That was the first album I ever bought on vinyl.
That was the first album that I ever owned on CD.
That's so cool. Is there anything that you wanted to plug?
Stream my album.
Yeah, seriously do it. It's a fantastic album. And if you want to stay up to date with Nat, you can follow her on Twitter. And there's also a Left at London Updates Twitter that you can follow for music releases and stuff like that.
Twitter, Insta, TikTok, all Left at London, all every place.
Well, Nat, thanks so much for joining me. That was a really good conversation, and we'll see how this Hitpiece shit plays out in the coming days. That was a slip. I saw someone call it shitpiece on Twitter or LinkedIn or something like that. Anyway, Left at London, Automated Beat Machine, a conversation about Hitpiece and NFTs. This has been Automated Beat Machine. Thank you for listening. This episode was made by me, with theme music and production assistance by Alex Di-Pasquale, script assistance from Greg Ekstrom, and artwork by Jimmy Christian. And now, a sample of Pills and Good Advice by Left at London.
Pills and good advice. Kill me if you can. Say I'll be okay. I don't mind if it's a lie. I can burn this bridge. It could be today, but you know the reason why. Please hold me now. Please let me drown. Please hold me now. Please let me down. I know that something's missing, or rather something else is there. I spend the day existing. missing. You spend it being unaware. The times I wake up smiling, feel like I'm making fun of you. I left the ER crying, so what's the use in trying now? Please let me down. Don't let me drown. Please let me down. Don't let me drown. I need to steal some, I need to feel some, I need to dream some, I need to be something. I need to get better, I gotta get better. I used to be better, but I could never be them again. I need a sign to number 5. The straighter the line, the more it's been made. Circles confined, it's by design, but at least the 3D printer's handmade. I need a sign to number 5. The straighter the line, the more it's been made. Circles confined, it's by design, but at least the 3D printer's handmade. I've been building all for you. I've been texting on the freeway just to talk to you. And I know you wouldn't want me to, but I know if any later you won't follow through. Yeah.
And I have noticed you've had it hard, even since the attack. And I would take you up to the stars if I knew you'd be back. And I have noticed you've had it hard, even since the attack. And I would take you up to the stars if I knew you'd be back.
Even though I know it's been hard, I could never go back.
Hey, so it's Danny popping in for one last coda. Right now, I'm a little bit unsure what the schedule of the podcast is going to be. This episode actually jumped the queue a bit so I could get it out relatively close to when the Hitpiece thing actually happened. Ideally, I'd like to release once every 2 weeks, so I'm going to try and get into that rhythm. To keep up to date with the show, as well as whatever other detritus I have floating around in my brain, follow me at Danny Vagnoni, that's at DANNYVAGNONI_ on Twitter. And also please follow Atwood Magazine. They have a lot of great writers there, as well as great interviews, features, and stuff like that that would probably interest you. You may also be interested to follow the associated YouTube channel, which is just Automated Beat Machine. I have another video there from before Atwood picked up the project, and also the show was named something different. But basically I'll be taking these episodes and putting them over there with some enhanced visuals and stuff like that. And maybe as I figure out where the show wants to go, there will be some shorter form video stuff on the channel. But again, thank you for listening. Thank you so much to Left It London, and stay tuned for the next episode, which will be featuring Evan Greer on digital privacy. And boy, okay, that one will be something, because as I'm recording this, Bandcamp was just bought by Epic Games. That sucks. All right, see you next time.